Trump strikes a deal with Democrats to prevent government shutdown. This is what I've been kind of worrying about. Outside of all like the ICE shit and everything that's been going on, I've been trying to signal like, hey people, we're ending towards like a very quick second government shutdown in a very short period of time. Especially with Democrats like planting their feet in the ground a little bit on the DHS spending, which is a good thing. President Donald Trump and Senate Democrats struck a deal on Thursday to avert a prolonged shutdown for most of the federal government. Five sources familiar with the agreement cited an effort to de-escalate a bitter fight over Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs. Okay, DHS and ICE reached a boiling point at the U.S. Two killings. While funding will temporarily lapse for multiple agencies, start at 12:01 a.m. Saturday, which would be this upcoming Saturday. Senate vote on the funding agreement could happen as soon as Thursday night, which could happen tonight. Government shutdown. As the country reels from the deaths of two protesters, Republicans and Democrats have come together to get the vast majority of the government funded until September, which will have another this shit's so irritating because there is zero fucking reason for the U.S. government to be even needing a government shutdown. No other developed country in the world does this shit. Republicans, Democrats come together. Much needed bipartisan vote. He encouraged members of both parties. Democrats requested the 2-week extension, say they are prepared to block the wide-ranging spending bill if their demands aren't met, denying Republicans the vote they need to pass and potentially triggering a shutdown. The thing I worry about it is that they will back off of it again last second, like they did last time. Last time was so pathetic from the Democrats. It was so fucking weak. And it showed that they had zero fucking spine. The rare bipartisan talks between Trump and frequent adversary Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer came to the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. Schumer called it a moment of truth. The American people support law enforcement. They support border security. They do not support ICE. Yep. Democrats have laid out several demands asking the White House to end roving patrols in cities and coordinate with local law enforcement on immigration arrests, including requiring tighter rules for warrants, which is a really big thing, especially with the memo that came out from ICE that were like, oh, you can just go and ignore like the need for a warrant. Democrat caucus is united in those common sense reforms. The burden is on Republicans to accept them, Schumer said. Tom Homan then stated during a press conference that ICE officials are developing a plan to reduce the number of agents in Minnesota, but this would depend on cooperation from state authorities. House Republicans have said they do not want any changes to the bill they passed last week. In a letter to Trump on Tuesday, the conservative House Freedom Caucus wrote that its members stand with Republican president and ICE. The package will not come back to the House without funding for the DHS. Johnson appeared on open changes, albeit reluctantly, and told the AP he would want to approve the bill as quickly as possible once the Senate acts. On Thursday evening at the premiere, House Republicans are genuinely like, out of Senate, the Senate, the House, and the executive, the House Republicans are like the biggest fucking morons in existence. See what they do. Associated Press rates. Yeah. I am expecting a government shutdown to happen. And what I am really worried about is that Democrats are going to back off of it like last time. Because they took all the fucking blame. Failed. Yeah. I'm not surprised at this. Direct removal of United States Armed Forces from Venezuela that had not been authorized by Congress. I'm not surprised that that failed. 215 to 215, by the way. All right, well, we'll have to see if a shutdown happens. I mean, the thing is, if the shutdown happens again, I mean, we're gonna see food stamps be cut again. We're gonna see they're gonna probably. I could imagine seeing Republicans doing the same playbook because they expect Democrats to do the same fucking stupid ass, pathetic, spineless shit as they did last time and take all the responsibility for the shutdown and point no fingers at Republicans.
There's been a vote just gavelled in that does not avert a partial government shutdown, with the deadline on that coming up tomorrow night. You heard the president just minutes ago suggest that he hopes that a shutdown is avoided. A lot of eyes had been on.
Yeah, because last time it happened, it was so bad for Trump and Republicans. A shutdown is so bad for Trump and Republicans.
This vote to see if perhaps there was some sort of deal that Democrats and Republicans could come to. It appears that's not the case, but let's bring in our chief congressional correspondent, Ryan Nobles, who's going to break this down for us. And Ryan, there had been maybe early this morning some indication that perhaps there would be a compromise to avoid a shutdown. It looks like, at least right now, that didn't move forward.
Yeah, I think they're still talking, Hallie, and from what I'm told, they're still moving in the direction of coming up with some sort of a deal before this is all said and done. But I think more than anything, the Majority Leader John Thune wanted to put this package on the table to at least get a head count as to where folks are in terms of these negotiations. Now, every single Democrat voted no, but what was interesting
which is not
that
surprising.
there was a collection of Republicans that also voted no, and that was a bit of a surprise. And
I'm not surprised in this, because there's been a lot of Republicans that have been pretty vocal recently, especially with how ICE has been. You know, it's not great, but it's not nothing that they've been pretty vocal on the pushback against ICE and the Republicans, or the greater Republican establishment.
Our team is now spread out around the chamber to try and get some sense of exactly why these Republicans voted no. I don't think there's a uniform reason behind it, but it could mean that these Republicans want to be a part of whatever deal is being hatched between the White House and Senate Democrats before they then offer up their yes vote on these long-term appropriations bills. And so
Ryan,
the deal. Go ahead, Hallie.
Just before we get too far down into that track, I just want to remind people, if you can help us here, why there is this threat of a partial government shutdown in the first place.
For no reason.
It has to do with the president's immigration operations in Minneapolis, with Democrats after the shooting and killing of a 37-year-old Minneapolis man, Alex Preddy, on Saturday, suggesting they did not want to fund the Department of Homeland Security as part of this package, and that's where this threat originated.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. A week ago at this time, it looked as though we were on a glide path to a long-term government funding package, that the remaining 6 appropriations bills that had yet to be passed would sail through the Senate. They passed the House relatively easily, but then the shooting and killing of Alex Preddy changed that conversation quite a bit, because the Department of Homeland Security is part of that package. What's making this process difficult is that Democrats have said that they have no problem voting yes on 5 of the 6 appropriations bills, which includes funding for the Department of Transportation, for the IRS, for the Pentagon. But it's that Department of Homeland Security budget that they want to have more of a conversation about.
And by the way, we're not. Why am I fighting? I'll get to that later. But like, we're not on, like, healthcare is no longer on the table. We said, oh, we're gonna let this. Democrats are like, we're gonna get this passed. We're gonna resume funding for stuff, and then we'll return to the healthcare spending. Just on this bill, we're never going back to the healthcare spending. That's irreversible damage without structural change to healthcare subsidies and proper healthcare coverage from Medicaid and Medicare.
They've asked for a very specific set of reforms in the wake of the violence that we've seen.
By the way, I have seen healthcare premiums already increasing for patients that I see every day.
Pop up in Minnesota. Initially, Republicans were resistant to that. They said it was an all or nothing proposition. You either vote for everything or you vote for nothing. And this is complicating because they have to have a certain number of Democratic votes to get over that 60-vote threshold in order to guarantee government funding is taken care of throughout the rest of the fiscal year. That led to conversations between the White House and Senate Democrats, and they are making progress. The White House appears to be open to this conversation. They seem to recognize how the situation in Minneapolis has gotten a bit out of control.
A bit out of control. The situation in Minneapolis has gotten a bit out of control. I genuinely cannot stand legacy media. Like, I don't want to finish that video because of that. Voted against the measures were Senator Ted RNC, Republican North Carolina, Utah, Florida, Alaska, South Dakota. For procedural reasons, John Thune. Florida, Alaska, Florida. The failed vote on the House package was expected, as Democrats had warned they would not support it without significant safeguards. Moment is truth for the United States and America. What the nation witnessed on Saturday in the streets of Minneapolis was a moral abomination. What ICE is doing outside the law is sanctioned thuggery, and it must stop, and Congress has the authority and the moral obligation to act. So does the fucking goddamn governor of Minnesota. He's not gonna fucking do anything, dude. This shit's pissing me off. Yeah, the White House and Senate Dems, they'll work this out. From funding from many critical agencies, including Department of Defense, Secretary of Transportation, Health and Human Services, Education, Homeland Security, runs out at 11:59 ET on Friday. We were supposed to bring back, like they said they would bring back healthcare spending. They never did. We are going to, I think we're going to get into another shutdown. It's going to be rough. Be rice and bean pilled, because shit's about to get far more expensive. Far more expensive. And far faster, too. Like, this is going to continue happening over and over and over and over and over and over again.